Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to get started. Director Cobb, if you would, I think earlier you heard the question, and if you would just introduce your associate, and the floor is yours.
With me to my right and your left is Assistant Director Roy Jones, who heads up our administrative division in the Codes Department, and sitting in the back have Assistant Director Bill Penn, who heads up our Property Standards Division, and Assistant Director Wade Hill, who heads up all construction related services. And the question, I believe, is how will our additional funding improve services to the people of Nashville? We do have an increased amount in the mayor's recommended budget. Is an increase of $164,000, which will increase the number of Codes Department employees by 3. Over the past couple of years, the mayor and the council have been quite good to the Codes Department. Over the past couple of years, you've increased the number of employees within the Codes Department by 8. This year, we're asking for 3 additional employees. 2 of these 3 positions will be assigned to our Property Standards Division. One is a field inspector, one as a office support representative, and the 3rd position will be assigned to our zoning division. These 3 additional positions will allow us to be more responsive to citizens' requests for property standards inspections and allow us to deliver the inspections in a more timely manner. It actually restores us back to pre-recession level staffing numbers that we had within the Property Standards Division, and it allows greater office support for that staffing that's working out in the field, and that office support staff is also represents the people who are talking to the citizens, responding to their questions, providing information that is requested. The 3rd position in our zoning division will allow us to make more timely responses to citizens who are calling or emailing the zoning division primarily with questions. And just basically because of the unprecedented high volume that we're currently experiencing in construction permits, we often are short-staffed in order to return phone calls and respond to emails, and this position will allow us, 1, to do a better job of doing that, but also have an individual in the office who is undergoing some degree of training so that as we realize turnover within that division, we'll have somebody standing by with some background and experience in it. So with that, I'd be happy to address any budget questions by the members of the Budget and Finance Committee or other members of council.
Thank you, Director. And I want to introduce the co-chair here. He's the chair of Codes, Fair and Farmers Market, Chairman Coleman. If you have any questions, we'll get those at the end. So, Council Lady Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Terry, you and I had a conversation about this earlier. I just want to kind of get it on the record. I had asked if perhaps this new position or maybe having this position free up other people to do stuff would be useful in enabling us to provide more effective enforcement of the short-term rental regulations, which we're in our first year of enforcement and still kind of learning how to do that well. And I'm hopeful that adding these people will make that process work, continue to get better and better as we kind of learn how to deal with it.
Yeah, so, and when we were talking, I made a remark, for 10 to 15 years, we told people they didn't need a special permit for short-term rentals. And the county clerk told them they didn't need anything special from them. At that time, they were collecting, I think, the hotel motel tax. So a lot of information went out to a lot of people over a long period of time. And then last year we changed and said, no, you do have to have a permit and you do have to abide by these rules. So it's relatively brand new program. we're just now renewing that cycle of new permits we issued last year, and now we're receiving calls on violations of the rules relating to short-term rental permits. We have already dedicated a inspector in our Property Standards Division who works on the flex team. That's not assigned to a geographical territory. They're assigned to special projects. Greg Stiles is his name, and Bill Penn tells me that he's currently involved. About 80% of Greg's time has been going towards short-term rental properties. So the position that we're asking for isn't necessarily related to short-term rental property in any way, but they are indirectly related because that's part of what we do.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Sledge.
Thank you, Director, and thank you for working with me on a piece of legislation that we just passed. I appreciated all the flexibility and responsiveness that the department provided. Mine's a follow-up question to Council Lady Allen on short-term rentals. Assuming that a couple of these FTEs are going to at least have as part of their role enforcement of STRs, and I remember, I'm working off memory, I think we have from permits, the permit revenue goes to your department, correct?
Well, it goes to we collect it, it goes to the general fund.
Gotcha, okay. And I seem to remember something around the tune of about $44,000 or something like that, if that's...
There's roughly 1,000, a number approaching 1,000 short-term rental permits.
Okay, so that way...
$50 each, so...
Yeah, so about $50,000.
Somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000. I don't know if we have that number segregated.
Yeah, we've already exceeded that so far through 10 months.
We're about 50,500.
Through 10 months, he said, for the fiscal year? Okay. I guess my question is it helpful at all when we're talking about we're getting revenue from this very obvious permit, and then there's clearly a need to enforce those permits and issues related to them? Would you prefer as a department that revenue be dedicated toward the enforcement of the permits that's being issued, or does it make any difference to you?
Oh, I would absolutely love it if you would dedicate all Codes Department revenues to the department because we're generating more than $8 million surplus revenues this year. So I'd love that, but we're amply collecting revenue dollars off permits, enough that it's about twice our budget. So I don't think we need to look at a $5,000 line item and see if we can find a way just to dedicate that to the Codes Department. But it all goes to the general fund.
Okay, and then
and our revenues do cover all of our operating expenses, hard costs, soft costs, general overhead costs. I think it even includes a pro rata share of the Metro Council staff. So it includes all costs.
Okay, and just my one follow-up to that is, with this obvious, kind of boom that we've had in these STR permits and the requests that you're having for increased staff, do you feel like the legislation we currently have and that we did some modifications to earlier this year, do you feel like with this increase in staff that you can adequately and timely enforce what we've put forward?
I do.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
Councilman Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Cobb, I hate to keep beating a dead horse, to use a poor phrase, but with short-term rentals in particular, we do have a large number in District 6 and some of the other districts. One of the side effects of having a complaint-driven system for codes violation reporting is that neighbors in some cases are bringing to the attention of code staff that there are violations, are reporting to staff and reminding staff of what those violations are, and yet there's not a real clear follow-up either with those constituents or in some cases even with myself about what follow-up is being taken to enforce that. And if that would require additional staff, I guess I'm just concerned that even with the level of staffing that we have today, even when neighbors are tracking those responses and bringing them to the attention of your staff, that we're not seeing the kind of follow-up even when there's a long-standing documentation. And sometimes that includes, police reporting and some of the other things that go around. Again, primarily with the short-term rentals that are problematic, but it does place quite a burden on neighbors to initiate, but also to follow up on that enforcement. And I'm not certain that many of my constituents, even some who are short-term rental hosts themselves, feel that level of follow-up is satisfactory. And I just want to see what your thoughts are about how to remedy that. Thank you.
Well, it was another one of the conversations Council Lady Allen and I had today was to pull together a meeting with Bill Penn and Bill Herbert, zoning administrator, and I, Metro Police Department, Council Lady Allen, some other interested people. Let's have some discussions about, we don't have a staff that can cover 530 square miles, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But we do have a staff like that that is responding to calls about noise or disturbing the peace. And there are some cases where there are citations issued or reports written about the stop, and there is a process in place, and we still receive a few of these notices from time to time called a police safety report, where the officer will jot down a note about an unsafe condition he may see in the field that he believes to be code related. And it passes it through with his paperwork and is routed to the codes department. And so it's a good system. We've been doing it for 15 years, I would imagine. And we still get tips from the police officers out in the field round the clock about what's going on out there. And I think that might be the way to get the documentation concerning the loud noise or commotion caused by blocking of streets or driveways. So we're going to continue to explore those.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, if I may indulge just for one follow-up question, sort of on a related thing, I know that Mr. Penn had in the past a notice program that he worked with neighbors on that was very effective at helping some of our neighbors address codes issues and things of that nature. Do you foresee any other opportunities of maybe working with neighborhood groups or citizen groups to help with some of those reporting and follow-up measures?
We love the notice program. We've promoted it for years. It's a proactive program where we work with individual neighborhood associations and volunteers. We ask for as at least 4 volunteers from a neighborhood association who will train and show how to use the various forms and reports. And we've had as many as 20 to 25 different neighborhood associations working with the program. But what happens, everybody gets really excited about it. They turn in a lot of stuff. We react to it. We go through a lot of enforcement. We get some results. And then the interest in the program wanes. So I would think today we would have I think Bill told me we have it's either 3 or 4 neighborhood associations that we would classify as being very active in the program. And one of the first ones was out in your district. It was very helpful in getting it kicked off.
Council Lady Vercher.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Director Cobb. I want to also just say that I thank your department for everything that they do, and I just want to expand upon what Councilman Withers has indicated about as it relates to codes enforcement. I get a lot of constituent calls regarding the lack of codes enforcement. You indicated earlier that your personnel requests put you at the staffing level before the pre-recession. So we know the growth of our city. My question is, why aren't you asking for more personnel so that we can increase the level of service to our constituents, so that codes is, I don't want to say enforced more aggressively, but enforced more timely. I have a property in my district that's been set on fire, vandalized, and it's been an eyesore in the community for the last 6 years. And we're still working to resolve that issue. So my question is, considering the growth of the city, considering the complaints that we receive from our constituents regarding the lack of codes enforcement, the number that you're requesting, is this sufficient to resolve those issues? And if not, you need to let us know what we need to do to help you so that we're not continuing to get these calls about the lack of codes enforcement from your department.
These two additional positions returns us to a staffing of 18 inspectors and chiefs and 3 full teams of inspectors, which includes a fully staffed flex team. Now, that is the level we were staffed at back in 2007 and 2008. If you go back 10, 15 years, we were staffed at probably 50% lower than that. But in 2007, 2008, that was about the level we were staffed at. It's not exactly accurate when I say it carries us back completely to that staffing level, because you got to remember the Metro Health Department inspectors and responsibility for enforcing the health code was merged with the codes department shortly after that time. And 5 health department inspectors were transferred to the property standards division. And that actually would have carried us up to a staffing, I think it would be 23 or thereabouts. But 18, most of the health department violations were duplicates of codes department violations. It's just we had 2 different departments enforcing the same rules, with the exception of high grass and weeds. And under high grass and weeds, the health department had that. So every year in about this time of year, starts late March, April, May, June, and we'll build up to we have about 800 overgrown vacant lots or houses that haven't cut the grass about the month of May each year. But we enforce that the same way we enforce all other code violations. So the staffing level will go up by 2. It is a level that we think is in line with what our peer cities would staff at, in line with the number of inspections being done by our inspectors aren't exceeding the benchmark best practices ranges. We think it is a level that our inspectors can comfortably handle what's being asked of them.
Let me rephrase what I was asking. So for the viewing audience and for the public, you can say with confidence that this request, this staffing level that you're asking for, our constituents will see improved codes enforcement.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Dow.
I'll make mine real quick. Are all of your code inspector positions filled at the present time?
No, there are not. I think we currently have 2 vacant inspector positions.
Do you have the same challenges in planning with seeing the inspector positions turn over?
We incidentally, we're interviewing to fill those positions, but
Okay.
the codes department is different than the planning department.
Yeah, I didn't want to compare, and I don't want to take up time. I was just
Well, our turnover issue is kind of the opposite of theirs. They have young professionals who will be there for a couple of years and then bye. The coach department, we have probably one of the oldest staffs of all the departments in Metro, because we've got a lot of career people that spent their careers in the construction trades as project managers and stuff. And as they approach 55, 60 years of age, then they come to work for codes for, 10, 12, 15 years.
Gotcha.
And then they retire. So
Okay.
our staff, we're going to have a lot of retirement. We've had a lot this year. I got notice of one this morning.
Okay.
Okay.
And I guess that's it. I was just echoing, we want to make sure that we support the codes department and you have what you need. We get a lot of requests for codes enforcement. The other thing I would just suggest is working with the IT department and looking at technology that you can use to reduce the cost as far as the reporting. Some of the cities are using new technology, and it's proven to be very beneficial and helpful with responding to requests such as, barking dogs, high grass, and all of those things. So thank you.
Our technology, I think, is as good as any codes department in the United States, except that it's very, very old. And we've taken it to the absolute limits of what it's capable of being. And we have a completely new system that will completely replace our current system that will go live. Current scheduled date is May 23rd, which is a week from Monday.
Stand by. I thought you were finished, Council Lady. Okay.
I was just going to say thank you. I know some cities have where, especially when it comes to community issues, you can take your iPhone, snap a picture of it, and send it and do interactive reporting. I know we have like a code enforcement site. I'm not confident that we're utilizing it when people put in requests and so forth. So that's why I was asking. But I would like to continue to talk with you and have conversations about how we can.
The base platform goes live a week from Monday, but we'll continue to add features to it and take advantage. We're trying to leverage technology to the greatest extent possible. Norton.
Council Lady Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Cobb, I'm looking at your employee listing. Can you speak to the seasonal workers that you have and what work they do? It shows you have 6 seasonal workers.
Yeah, last year, the council transferred alarm registrations to the codes department from the Metropolitan Clerk's office. And these are alarm systems on people's homes and businesses, and they obtain permits from us. They renew them once a year, and so we got the transfer of all of the Metropolitan Clerk's personnel, all one of them, okay, to the codes department, and then all of the processes as they performed them. And they use 6 seasonal employees. In April each year, those alarm registrations renew, and we hire 6 seasonal employees to work. Everything is a manual system. Everything's done by hand. They open the envelopes, they take the check out, they work up the deposit, they go get the sticker, they put it in an envelope, they mail it back to the person. It's a very antiquated system, and it was sent to us so that we might update it and use technology, leverage that, allow for online renewals and such. By next year's renewal cycle with the new computer system, that'll be automated and they can renew online, and we'll use fewer seasonal employees. But that's it. There's a total of 7 employees associated with alarm permits. 6 of those are seasonal.
Okay, so you're targeting for next year's
Correct.
budget to try to automate that. Seeing the seasonal worker, that reminded me, and you said, you have 800 overgrown yards come May. We in our district see in the summer a proliferation of illegal signs. And you've spoken with us in the past regarding flex teams. Do you see any opportunities as it relates to maybe youth workforce development in the summer? Those crews that can go around and get those signs and pick those up. And have you looked at that kind of from a seasonal perspective?
We actually haven't. We haven't made that proposal. We picked up 12,360 signs this fiscal year so far, coach department personnel. We've begun back in March of this year. We began our weekend sweeps of signage, so we'll continue that probably up until it gets just so blistering hot we don't like being out there. But the spring of the year is when that occurs.
And so that's your flex team that does these weekend
Well, it's
sweeps?
volunteers from the department that will put in a Saturday. We'll award them, if they're working, they get paid with comp time, should they want the assignment, but it's time that they can use to take off on another date if they choose to.
And do you feel that's effective to address that issue fully?
Well, it's working between normal working hours and those Saturday sweeps is working well enough. We picked up 12,360, which I think is probably about 12,360 more than other departments have picked up.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
And it's about a 20% increase over what we picked up last year, which was a number of 10,000 and something.
Okay, Director, seeing no other council people in the queue, we appreciate the presentation and your presence here and answer the questions.
Thank you very much.